Hello, this is Slate with Combo of Rocks, bringing you another video deck tech of a deck that we built and sold by request. If you're not familiar with us, we make and sell custom budget EDH decks. These decks are light on the budget, so they may not be optimal or competitive, but they're definitely fun and centered around a central theme that you can build on. Today we have Tinybones, Trinket Thief, 1 in a black for a 1/2 legendary skeleton rogue. On the beginning of each end step, if opponent discarded a card this turn, you draw a card and lose a life. You can pay 4 black to have each opponent with no cards in hand lose 10 life. So yes, this is a discard deck. Let's get into it. We also have Tinybones, Bauble Burglar, 1 in a black for a 1/3 legendary skeleton rogue. Whenever an opponent discards a card, exile it from the graveyard with a stash counter on it. During your turn, you can play cards you don't own with stash counters on them from exile, and mana of any type can be spent to cast those spells. 3 black, tap, each opponent discards a card, only as a sorcery though. We have Karvik the Punisher, which is 1 black for a 3/3 legendary human warlock. Whenever you commit a crime, exile up to 1 target black card from your graveyard and copy it. You can cast a copy. If you do, you lose 2 life. A lot of our spells do target our opponent and target them to discard cards, allowing us to make them discard even more cards when you cast the copy. The Raven Man, 1 in a black for 2/1 legendary human wizard. On each end step, if a player discarded a card, create a 1/1 black bird creature token with flying that can't block. 3 black, tap, each opponent discards a card, but only as a sorcery. Waste Not, 1 in a black enchantment. Whenever opponent discards a creature card, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. Whenever opponent discards a land card, add 2 black. Whenever an opponent discards a non-creature, non-land card, draw a card. Oppression, 1 black enchantment. Whenever a player casts a spell, that player discards a card. Words of Waste, 2 in a black enchantment. Pay 1. The next time you would draw a card this turn, each opponent discards a card from their hand instead. Works well with Tinybones' ability that draws cards, but also any other card draw in the deck. Painful Quandary, 3 black for an enchantment. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, they lose 5 life unless they discard a card. Hypnotic Spectre, 1 black for a 2/2 flying spectre. An opponent dealt damage by it discards a card at random from their hand. Ragman, 2 black for a 2/1 minion. Black tap. Target opponent reveals their hand and discards a creature card at random from it, only during your turn. Phyrexian Arena, 1 black enchantment. On your upkeep, you draw a card and lose a life. Ill-Gotten Gains, 2 black, exile it, and then each player discards their hand, then returns 3 cards from their graveyard to their hand. Just a good way to empty people's hands, get them down to 3 cards, and then hopefully you can force them to discard them. Dream Stealer, 2 in a black for a 1/2 human wizard with menace. When it deals damage to a player, that player discards that many cards. You can eternalize it from your graveyard for 4 black. It does become a 4/4 zombie human wizard at that point. Tinybones joins up. 1 black legendary enchantment. When it enters, any number of target players each discard a card. Whenever a legendary enters the battlefield under your control, any number of players mill a card and lose a life. Final Act, 4 black, sorcery, choose 1 or more, destroy all creatures, all planeswalkers, all battles, exile all graveyards, or each opponent loses all counters. Sever the Bloodline, 3 in a black, exile a creature and all other creatures with the same name. Just a good way to get rid of tokens, or maybe just one creature that you're having trouble with. You can also flash it back for 5 black. Leyline of the Void, 2 black. If it's in your opening hand, you can begin it with it on the battlefield. If a card would be put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. Just a good way to prevent your opponent from using your discard to their advantage. Hedonist Trove, 5 black. When it enters, exile all cards from target opponent's graveyard. You can play lands exiled with it and cast non-land cards exiled with it. You can't cast more than one spell this way. Each turn. Just a good way to close out the game if you've caused your opponent to discard lots of cards. Again, also some graveyard hate attached. Ob Nixilis Reignited, 3 black for a 5 loyalty Nixilis. +1, draw a card, lose a life. -3, destroy a creature. -8, target opponent gets an emblem. Whenever they draw a card, they lose 2 life. Hagra Mauling, 2 black, costs 1 less if an opponent controls no basics. Destroy a creature, can also be a tapped black land. Distended Mindbender, 8 mana for a 5/5 Eldrazi insect with Emerge, 5 black. You cast a spell, target opponent reveals their hand. Choose a card with mana value 3 or less, and also one with 4 or greater. They discard both of those cards. And into some mana rocks, we have Coalition Relic. And then Gress Grimoire, 4 mana. Artifact, when an opponent discards a card, you draw a card. Again, works very well with Words of Waste. Navigation Orb, this is our colorless Cultivate. Mind Stone, can also draw a card. Arcane Signet. Soul Ring. Wayfarer's Bauble, or colorless Rampant Growth. Worn Power Stone, taps for 2 colorless. Heraldic Banner can give your creatures of the chosen color, which is black, +1/+0. Everflowing Chalice. Stone Speaker's Crystal, this one can also exile graveyards and allow you to draw. Charcoal Diamond. Rackling, 4 mana 2/2 artifact creature. On the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, it deals X damage to that player, where X is the number of cards in their hand, fewer than 3. So again, hurts them more if they have less cards in hand. Shrine of Limitless Power, 3 mana artifact. Whenever you cast a black spell or on your upkeep, put a charge counter, 4 tap, sack it. Target player discards a card for each charge counter on it. Implement of Malice, 2 mana, artifact, pay a black, sack it, target player discards a card. When it is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, draw a card. We have Davriel, Rogue Shadow Mage, 2 black for 3 loyalty Davriel. On each opponent's upkeep, if that player has 1 or fewer cards in hand, he deals 2 damage to them. -1, target player discards a card. Liliana's Caress, 1 black enchantment. Whenever an opponent discards a card, that player loses 2 life. Raider's Wake, 3 black, same ability, but it does have a raid. If you attacked with a creature, target opponent discards a card. Fell Spectre, same ability. Whenever an opponent discards a card, that player loses 2 life. This is on a 1/3 flying body, and when it enters, target opponent discards a card. Siphon Mind, 3 black. Each other player discards a card. You draw a card for each card discarded this way. Blood Husk Ritualist, 2 black for a 2/2 Vampire Shaman with multi-kicker black. So you can pay black multiple times. Target opponent discards a card for each time it was kicked. Distress, black sorcery. Target opponent reveals their hand. Choose a non-land card. That player discards that card. Shrieking Affliction, 1 black enchantment. On each opponent's upkeep, if they have 1 or fewer cards in hand, he or she loses 3 life. Raven's Crime, 1 black, target player discards a card. You can cast this from your graveyard by discarding a land card in addition to it paying its other costs. Vicious Rumors, 1 black, deals 1 damage to each opponent. Each opponent discards a card, puts the top card of their library into their graveyard, and you gain 1 life. Harsh Scrutiny, 1 black sorcery. Opponent reveals their hand. Choose a creature from it. That player discards it, then scry 1. Divest, 1 black. You choose an artifact or creature. They discard that card. Duress, 1 black. You choose a non-land or non-land on-creature card. They discard it. Abyssal Spectre, 2 black for a 2/3 flying spectre. When it deals damage to a player, that player discards a card from their hand. Skull Tithe Worm, or Skull Slither Worm, 3 black for a 3/3. When it enters, each opponent discards a card. For each opponent who can't, put 2/1 counters on it. Seeker's Folly, 2 black, choose 1. Target opponent discards 2 cards, or creatures your opponents control get -1 until end of turn. Invasion of Eldraine, 3 black for a 4-point siege. As it enters, target opponent discards 2 cards. If you're able to flip it, it does turn into Prickle Fairies, a fairy 2/2 flying. On each opponent's upkeep, if they have 2 or fewer cards in hand, it deals 2 damage to them. Miasmic Mummy, 1 black for a 2/2 zombie jackal. When it enters, each opponent discards a card. Entomber Exarch, 2 black for a 2/2 Phyrexian Cleric. As it enters, choose 1, return a creature card from your graveyard to your hand, or target opponent reveals their hand, choose a non-creature card, and that player discards that card. Pilfer, 1 black. Opponent reveals their hand, choose a card, and they discard it, a non-land card. Extract the Truth, 1 black, choose 1. Target opponent sacks an enchantment, or they reveal their hand, you choose a creature, enchantment, or planeswalker, and they discard that card. Feed the Swarm, 1 black, destroys a creature or an enchantment an opponent controls. You lose life equal to that permanent's mana value. Hero's Downfall, 1 black instant, destroys a creature or planeswalker. Breathe Your Last, same thing, but you gain a life for each of that creature's colors. Elspeth's Nightmare, 2 black for an enchantment saga. First chapter, destroy a creature with power 2 or less your opponent controls. Second chapter, opponent reveals their hand, choose a non-creature 9 land, they discard it. The third chapter, exile target opponent's graveyard. Diabolic Tutor, 2 black, search your library for a card, put it in your hand, then shuffle. Tassagar's Cruelty, 5 black with Delve, so you can exile cards from your graveyard to help you cast it. Each opponent discards 2 cards. Enlightenment, or Enemy of Enlightenment, 5 black for a 5/5 enchantment creature demon with flying. Gets -1 for each card in your opponent's hands. On your upkeep, each player discards a card. Black Boom Rogue, 2 black for a 2/3 human rogue with menace. Gets +3/+0 as long as an opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard. Can also be a tapped black land. Into some actual lands here. Scavenger Grounds, this is a desert. Taps for colorless. 2 taps, sack a desert, exile all graveyards. Ominous Cemetery can shuffle a creature into its owner's library. Myriad Landscape for some colorless ramp. Volatile Fault destroys a non-basic land. They search for a basic and you create a treasure token. Field of Ruin destroys a non-basic. Each player searches for a basic, then puts it on the battlefield. Desert of the Glorified. This is a desert, taps for black, and can cycle for 1 black. Hidden Acropolis can be sacked to discover 4. The Dross Pits can be sacked to draw a card. Piranha Marsh enters and the player loses a life. And then we have some basic swamps here. That's the deck. I hope you enjoyed it, but we'll see you next time.